Welcome to the Minor Student Athlete feature, and today we have Emilie Nguyen from the women's golf team. Emilie, how are things going now that your fall season has wrapped up?
Right now, everything's going great. As a student, we're wrapping up midterms, and as a student athlete, we're getting ready to go into our off-season practice.
So let's talk about this past fall season. Your team placed second in your guys' opening tournament at the Lady Panther Invite. You finished tied for third in individuals, and you also had two other teammates who made it into the top 10 for individuals. Talk about that opening tournament and how it kind of opened up the season for you guys, and how that strong front kind of helped move you guys through the season.
Yeah, that first tournament was definitely a confidence booster for us. Definitely coming out of the summer, all of us were a little bit rusty because of the pandemic situation. And so, being able to compete was definitely a nice thing. Going into the first day, we all had some shaky starts, and the course in Bolivar wasn't easy. They were playing pretty windy, they were playing hard greens, and they were playing pretty long. So we definitely had to make sure that our short game was sharp. And so going into the second day, all of us kind of maintained and kept our composure, and we were able to pull through that second.
And talk about your short game. New rule this year with the pandemic that you guys have to keep the pins in the cup. So how did that affect you guys? One, in practicing, and two, actually competing with, you guys are normally used to pulling them out when you guys hit the green.
Yeah.
So how did that affect you guys?
Yeah, so we definitely weren't used to having the pins in, and it was basically a team bonding exercise for all of us because we weren't used to these conditions, and when the challenge presents itself, we had to face it. So we all helped each other kind of adjust our speeds and adjust our focuses when we came into those situations.
So, and then with that, you guys also had a shortened preseason with COVID. Everybody was trying to decide how to keep you guys safe with allowing you to compete. So how did this preseason differ than last year's preseason?
This year's preseason compared to last year's preseason was definitely different. Definitely when we went into different tournaments to compete, we had to abide by different regulations set by the golf courses and different schools. So one of them being with flag sticks, another one being with certain areas of the golf course we're at where we had to wear masks. So when we were on the putting green, we were asked to wear masks, and anywhere around the pro shop. But as we started to compete off the first tee and on the range, we were allowed to take our masks off.
So you are originally from Southern California. Coming here last year from basic LA, essentially, to Rolla, how did you have to adjust with the weather and the playing conditions here in the Midwest as opposed to out west?
Yeah, so I remember last year when I first came to campus, once the temperatures sat consistently under 6 degrees, I was shivering. So I had to learn how to play with layers on, especially because we were going to compete in these conditions. But now it's been all right. Missouri hasn't been too bad this year, but indoor practices are definitely a different thing. We had to, as opposed to focus on where our shots were going, where we had to focus on our basics. And it was through this that we learned that our basics was what drove us to play better.
Mm-hmm. So speaking of back home, you got a hole-in-one shot, right? So this was before you even entered high school, correct? Yeah. Okay, so talk about that with us, because there are not a lot of golfers just in general that have ever sank a hole-in-one.
Yeah, so my first hole-in-one, it was the summer leading up to my freshman year of high school. It was the first Toyota Cup event I played, and Toyota Cup is a little bit complicated, but it's basically the top tier of junior golf that you can play in SoCal. And the way this tournament was set up was, it was a 54-hole event where we played 36 holes the first day and 18 holes the next. We had 2 tee-off holes, so we had people teeing off at number 1, people teeing off at number 11. And it was because that hole number 10 was a par 3. Now, luckily for me, since hole number 10 was a par 3, it was my last hole going into the first round and then leading into the second round. And, I pulled out hybrid. It was like 163 yards. It hit the green first, then hit the pin, and then nobody knew where the ball went. And, I'm out here, like, confused. I'm like, where'd my ball go? And then I'm, like, looking out in the distance, and I see my mom jumping up and down. She's like, oh, my gosh, it went in! And, we walk up there, look in the hole, and best believe we see this neon tailor-made ball in the cup. And we're like, oh, my gosh! But it was a surreal experience.
Yeah, I bet, yeah. Okay, so let's go back a little bit. Back in March, when everything got shut down, you guys were coming off of a tournament in Florida from UMSL, and you guys were preparing to really just kickstart your spring season. Talk about what went through your guys' head when you came back and you saw that everything was essentially getting shut down, classes were moving online, they're canceling spring season. Kind of talk us through that.
That flight back from Florida, we were definitely scared. It was just something that none of us has been through. We didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know, like, what we should do, especially going into St. Louis where we heard that they had their first COVID case. Like, we didn't know how, like, the airport was going to function. And as we were on the drive back to school, we were like, what are we going to do? Because, most of us aren't from Rolla, Missouri. Most of us are from outside of it. So, all of us were trying to, keep calm and be like, hey, what can we do? And, eventually we managed.
So when everything did kind of get shut down, were you able to go back home to California?
Yeah, so because I came to Missouri S&T to play golf, I kind of brought everything with me. And so with that, it was kind of difficult for me to move everything and fly back home. But luckily, I had family in Missouri that would take me in to over the summer, so I stayed with them,
Good.
And it was nice.
Good. With you having to stay here during the summertime, and then with the pandemic happening, that really affected your essentially training in the spring and into the summer. How did you adjust to that?
Yeah, so going into the spring, I was coming off of a back injury, so I took that time off to let my back heal. But once summer hit, I definitely tried my best to train. Obviously, being from California, my training regimen was different because I didn't have the luxury of practicing every single day, especially in the pandemic. So, whenever I did go out and practice, I had to make sure that I was focusing on what I was doing and making sure I was making the most of it.
Why did you decide to come to Missouri S&T?
So when I was making plans after graduating from high school, I was telling myself that, these next 4 years are probably going to be one of the few moments that I'm going to be able to travel. So, ideally, I'd probably be where family is. So when I was looking for schools, I was looking for schools that offered mechanical engineering, was near family, and allowed me to play golf. And Missouri S&T had those options for me, so now I'm here.
So you speak of mechanical engineering as a major. You started out as a mechanical engineering major. You switched to chemistry, correct? And then back to Becky. So, like literally last week. So talk about why you made the first change of your major and then why you went back.
Okay. So, when I first came to S&T majoring in mechanical engineering, I had the experience of, working with my hands. I really enjoyed being hands-on. Whenever you had a package that came home, I was really excited to open it up and see if there was something to build. Playing golf, you learn about all these mechanical components that, contribute to your game. So, mechanical engineering just fit. And then as the school year went by last year, COVID was happening and all these, medical situations were presenting itself. And I was just like, I'm kind of interested in these things too. And, and I kind of enjoy looking at these more than, certain mechanical engineering aspects. So I switched to chemistry for a little bit. And then this year, as the school year was going by, I was looking back at, what a mechanical engineer is doing. And I was just like, you know what, I could do both. So I switched back to mechanical engineering and hoping to pursue cleaning and fire with it.
Okay. So, $1 million question to all students here. What are your plans after graduation?
Yeah, so being a sophomore, I can't really say exactly what I'm going to do, but I'm thinking that I'm going to advance my education and go to graduate school and possibly pursue a MBA. But if the right job opportunity presents itself, I wouldn't mind taking that either.
All right. Well, thank you, Emilie, for stopping by today. We really appreciate it.